Oh my God, I prematurely evacuated. It's now 7:11. All right, we're hitting the road. Let's go. Some lights, camera, action. Let's hit the road. So this is the Zav Girl Files Part 2. Part 1 went for about 40 seconds before I managed to prematurely evacuate. You're the first people. Well, I have said hello to my floof this morning, but I haven't really used my voice yet, so apologies if I sound a bit rough. I just want to go through some disclaimers, though, before I actually start this little chat. Now, this is not my official live on this topic. I definitely want to do one. We're in the finals week of MasterChef, so it's unlikely I'll be doing it tonight, but you never know. But there are a few things I want to say before I kick off, before I get accused of numerous allegations that have been flung left, right, and centre at anyone discussing the latest saga, slightly left of kilter and definitely not true crime community with Zav Girl. And I'm happy to run over the basic facts of what has happened. But I listened to a couple of podcasts or a couple of YouTube lives driving home last night from Bay of Fires, a good 3.5 hours. So I got to listen to a lot of different perspectives, and everyone's sort of missing the point that's sticking out like dog's balls to me. And what I thought I would do is go live and address what I think the real issue is here. And of course, it is a slightly skewed view because of where I live, but the Zav Girl drama scout. Before I don't know how much info I've got to give people, but here's my disclaimers before we kick off. And this is just those of you who know me in my community, I drive to work. My phone is like a dash cam. It's a million miles away from my face. I can only read things in capital letters, and only when it's very safe. But it's also where I get shit off my chest. And I got a few things I want to say. But before I say a few things, I just want to add some disclaimers, because there's the usual doesn't matter what side of the fence people are on in an argument, debate, discussion. Well, let's be honest, no one really debates the good old-fashioned way on YouTube. That's another reason why it's such a disappointing community at times. It is drive therapy. But I just want to point out, one, my channel is not monetized. So before any people decide to say she just went live to make money talking about somebody else making money, no, I didn't, and I'm not. Two, for those of you who are going to say, look at her jumping on the bandwagon, I've been on the Zav Girl bandwagon for a long time, and while her voyeuristic styles do not appeal to me, and I was very vocal about her during the Kylie Rodney case, where she rubbed me up the wrong way was regarding a case in Australia where a small girl called Cleo Smith went missing, and the now convicted abductor of Cleo Smith, who survived, by the way, for those of you who don't know the case. Hey, cement shoes. I ended it before I saw any chat. Hi, Mandy. It's going to be a bit rugged till I get out of this area, because we're in a coastal rural setting for anyone new who wanders in. If the screen goes black and starts buffering, I will be back. Hey guys, I just put some photos up of Bay of Fires on Tasmania Calling too, if you want to check that out afterwards for a bit of feel. Lily Eve, hello, how are you? So back to the before people start accusing me of numerous things, like making money talking about this. Well, I'm not monetized. Secondly, I'm not jumping on a bandwagon. I've been vocal about Zav Girl previously on this channel. Very vocal. I was very vocal during Kylie Rodney, but I was even more vocal during the Smith case because the guy that is now convicted of abducting was a man called Terence Kelly. Even though he'd been arrested, another Indigenous Australian, also called Terence Kelly, had his photograph put out all over the East kidnapper of. So he, rightly so, got some exemplary legal advice, which I would have given him as well, to sue the fuck out of any media outlet that either published his photo or showed his photo during news broadcasts saying he was the alleged kidnapper. Doesn't the sky look the sky? Cement Shoes, I saw your comment too about the sky too. I don't take it for granted. It's pretty gorgeous, but it's lovely seeing how people in other parts of the world react to it. Hey, Kim Animal. I haven't actually started what I'm about to say yet. And some of you may not like what I'm going to say. I think you will because you know I'm the voice of reason. But I'm just establishing my reasons for covering this. And it's not about making money. I'm not monetized. And it's not something new to me. I've talked about Zav Girl before many times. But back to the Cleo Smith thing. So the wrong Terence Kelly was put out in the media, not just in Australia, but globally, as being the accused kidnapper, and it wasn't him. It was another Terence Kelly, another Indigenous Australian. Anywho, Zav goes live, covering Cleo Smith, which I obviously was, like most Australian true crimers, covering as well. And it was wonderful that people the world over took an interest in this case and also got to celebrate when she was found alive. Like, it was an incredible story, let's be honest. It was one of those moments, I think, where the entire true crime community were united in just feeling absolute joy and happiness that this little girl had been found alive. It was pretty fucking special. But Zav was alive, and I was, obviously, because I'm following Cleo's story, I was interested to see other people's takes on it. And Zav put a photo up of the wrongly identified Terence Kelly. The lawsuit was already underway against every single media outlet within Australia and overseas who had shown his photograph. And I went into her chat and just said, hey, you might want to take that photo down because there's actually a lawsuit underway. That is not the guy who abducted Cleo Smith. In fact, he's a family man. His wife has just given birth to a baby, and he is incredibly traumatized that he has been wrongly identified. So, you know, do the right thing. Take that photo down. Well, she didn't get, like, majorly fired up with me about it, but she still kept the photo up. But what then happened was, I think I got timed out initially by a mod. I think I may ultimately have got blocked. That may have been after I then engaged in the comments section after the live. some of her mods were absolute savages. The shit that they said to me, and because I think someone had put a comment about great lives, Zav, and I said, I don't think it's great to show photographs of an innocent man who's already unbelievably traumatized along with his family and is suing because of this shit that Zav's just done. Like, yeah, okay, some of what Zav said might have been great. I don't know. But showing an innocent man like that, not great. Just remember, guys, I mean, I can't read chat now anyway because I'm driving on the highway, but to use capital letters, I can't read small print from, unless you're chatting amongst yourselves, which is awesome. So, yeah, I pretty much got blocked. But what also really fucked me off with that live was how many racist assholes were in her chat who were saying that this innocent guy still looked fucking creepy because he's an Indigenous Australian and they have a certain look that I think is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. And she didn't blink an eye about that shit. Whether she was, I don't know how much she engages with her chat, but she certainly engaged with my comment about not showing an innocent man. Unless she wanted to get her fucking ass sued. I thought I was, you know, being a good person to maybe point that out. But the mods who absolutely ripped me to shreds for saying you might want to take that down, totally let all the racist bullshit slide. Didn't give a fuck about that. And it was disgusting. If you had any idea about Australian history and what white people did to our Indigenous population, exactly like the white people did to your Indigenous fucking population, you wouldn't, even if you thought shit like that, you wouldn't say it publicly here, ever. You'd show compassion. Yeah, it was disgusting, cement shoes. But I still stayed very rational and reasonable and, you know, as disgusted as I was, I didn't start calling them cunts, even though they were being cunty. But I just wanted to lay that groundwork first because it seems if you give a fuck about what goes on YouTube and stuff that happens on here and you want to talk about it, you're automatically accused of being opportunistic and you're also making money criticising someone else for making money. And I just want to let everybody know, whether you know what happened with Zav or not, my issue isn't with her making money either. So I'm not monetized, and if she wants to make money, that's her thing. I mean, I believe everyone has to like their reflection at the end of the day, and if they don't, well, that's on them, you know. If they're doing something that goes against their ethics and their morals, and they can't sleep well at night because of how they're behaving, that's on them. Total cunty cunts, Mandy. But I am going to probably go an angle that I don't think anyone's really gone down in any great detail, because the lawyer in me always goes to, what's the root of this problem? Like, what's the core problem here? Yes, Zav Girl paid to get not just the autopsy photos, and I wish creators who are discussing this in either direction, those supporting Zav or those criticising her, would emphasise it was the complete file. From the moment they found the suitcase onwards. Autopsy photos are one thing. Finding the deceased body of an 11-year-old in a suitcase and accessing those photos as well, getting the full file, which was handed to her. She paid for it. But here lies the problem with that, as far as I'm concerned. Where's your discretion or your tact or your consideration of what you then show your Patreons? Like, if I paid for a file and I got access to all of this graphic stuff, but I was allegedly wanting to go through the autopsy photos for educational purposes, which I would never do, because I'm not qualified to, even though as a criminal lawyer, I have gone through gazillions of autopsy photos in my life and in court. But I'd exercise discretion and go, okay, well, if this was my mindset, because this is the explanation that Zav gave, was all about loving science, being curious, wanting to know every aspect of a trial, and I personally think you learn every aspect of a trial by watching the trial, but, you know, you do you, boo. But if you're going to put that stuff on Patreon for your Patreon members, maybe don't put everything up there, like the really graphic stuff. And also, while I'm at it, if you are going to put that shit in Patreon, maybe make it password protected. So it's not on Reddit within 20 seconds, which it was. Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to see that. And that's where the outrage, I think, with Zav Girl is warranted, that she did put the complete file up. But by the same token, guys, and this is where I'm going to say, I'm not here to rip Zav Girl to shreds, because she's not the core issue here, in my opinion. Now, I did listen to another creator who crapped on about, if you don't like it, don't watch it. I'm sick of hearing that shit being put out as an argument for people getting upset by what other people on YouTube are doing. Stop being 14. It's not that fucking simple. We're all in this community together, and there will be outrage from time to time. People will do shit from time to time that people want to talk about. This whole if you don't like it, don't watch it thing is fucked. I haven't looked at the photos and the video that Zav Girl did. I don't need to, but I still can have an opinion on it. I don't live in the Ukraine, but I've got very strong opinions about what Russia's fucking doing to that country right now. Stop with this bullshit, dismissive argument. It's not that basic. Like, we are observers on YouTube, and if we see shit that we think is reprehensible, we're going to fucking talk about it. We're adults. There is horrible shit happening all over the world, not just on YouTube. Yeah, okay, a song comes on the radio that you don't like. Change the channel. Don't whinge about the song for the next 3 years. That's where that argument works. You don't like it, don't watch it. No, if you hear or see something on YouTube that's fucked up, I think as an active member of a community, it's our responsibility to say something. But is what people are saying misguided, misdirected? What's the real fucking issue here? I'm going to tell you. In my humble opinion, I'm trying to think what this other supportive creator said. There were so many comments. I kind of want to react to her, but she'll probably strike me. I couldn't believe it. I was heckling like a demon. I actually pulled over and had to stop listening to it because I was like, nah. This is, and she hadn't actually done her research on what had actually been obtained and what was out there. Which just sort of, you don't have to actually see the link, like click on the link and see everything on there if you've listened to a creator who goes through all of the information that was released to Zav Girl. But this person hadn't even done that. They just kept talking about the autopsy photos. There's a lot more to it than that, motherfucker, and that's why people are pissed off. If channels and creators are into looking at autopsy photos, go for it. I know there's a voyeuristic streak in Zav Girl. I've seen it with everything she's ever covered, and it doesn't appeal to me. I'm not one of those people that wants to see a severely decomposing child in a suitcase. I'm not. But if that's her thing, and if she's got Patreons who are into that shit too, and she wants to pay for it, oh, and while I'm on that, the people that go, she's allowed to charge people to see it. She had to pay for that stuff. She probably wants to get her money back. No, you decide. If you want to spend money on something to show your Patreons or whatever, you don't then utilise your Patreons paying you to recoup the money. But that's a cost you take on your own right. Don't defend it behind the paywall shit because, oh, she needs to recoup her money. If I wanted to show my channel shit and I had to pay for it, there's no way I'd be like, well, I mean, I'm not monetized, so I can't even ask you guys to contribute anyway. But that's a cost I would take on myself. But, and this is where some of you might sort of start tuning out, and I'll be going into a bit of detail once we're in the car park. Detail. Listen to how I'm talking. Detail. I did have to pull over because I was getting really frustrated listening to that person. I mean, I used to find her so much fun back in the day when the true crime community was a lot of fun. She was bloody terrible with her true crime stuff, but she was highly entertaining. There's a bit of a train wreck aspect to her. And I spent a lot of time fucking around in her channel. I even gave her money. But I was listening to her yesterday and just thinking, you're actually making yourself sound and look like a fucking idiot. I'll probably leave what I think the core issue is till we're in the car park, because I know the audio while I'm cruising down the highway and the hot sun is a bit shit. Oh, another one too was another comment. The creator I've been talking about briefly said, oh shit, now I've forgotten. Oh, don't get emotionally attached to a case. Well, I wasn't able to as a criminal lawyer. Like, that's just the way you survive in that role, is to not get emotionally attached. I mean, I'd still get emotionally attached to certain people connected to cases. When I was doing child protection stuff, I'd get emotionally attached to some of the kids because they were so fucking cute. And yeah, people clearly were very emotionally attached to Gannon's story, because there were people on Deets on the Streets panel who were crying, like they were very affected by it. And I feel that it's a pretty shitty thing. Like, if someone is emotionally attached to a case, like say that I know with Shanann Bruchek and the girls, a lot of people were so traumatized by that case, understandably, because it was fucking disgusting. But as adults, we're pretty good at moderating our lives in that regard, and if we're feeling it's impacting us too much or whatever, we'll take steps to address that and have a breather, have a break from the case, whatever. But these are people on YouTube that aren't trained professionals that have to deal with trauma on a daily basis. And they do get emotionally attached, which is what makes some YouTube creators, I think, so compelling to watch, because their empathy is overflowing and they get this fire in their belly seeking justice for a victim. I mean, as a lawyer, it would be a really dangerous thing to do on every case. And I'm a bloody softie. My heart bleeds for so many people, but when you've got a job to do, especially when you're defending somebody accused of, at times, absolutely horrific crimes, getting emotionally attached is not good. You've got a job to do. You're a professional. Same with, first responders that rock up to accidents. Of course they're affected by what they see, but then they've got a job to do. They're professional. They get on with it. But why YouTube can be so compelling, especially in true crime, is these are people that aren't trained professionals and they're not doing this stuff every day. And the humanity in the way they cover things, I think, is one of the things that makes certain creators really appealing. And there's a reason I don't cover child cases. I did cover Cleo Smith, but you'll never see me doing a case on my channel involving the murders of children. Because I would just be a blubbering fucking mess the entire time. You wouldn't get to learn much from my lives if I covered child crimes, other than I'm a really ugly crier. That's basically what you'd learn. It would not be good viewing. It would not be informative. It would not be educational. Even disseminating the facts would be blurry because there'd be a lot of sobbing in between. Like, I know my limits. But when I was a criminal lawyer, if there was a case that landed on my desk involving a deceased child, I would do my job as a professional. And yeah, I might go home and have a cry every night and have a glass of wine with my partner and a bit of a debrief and then take a deep breath and then off we go again to do it the next day. But this is where I think part of the appeal of YouTube is it's everyday people covering these cases. And when they're going through the facts and you hear their voices crackling, that's what makes them engaging. The fact that they've got that empathy and compassion. But I also like the creators that can just tell the stories and not. I love Case File. Love that chapter. I love the storyteller true crimers as well that can somehow hold it together. And maybe they don't. Maybe they edit the fuck out of when they fall to pieces. But part of the beauty of YouTube is it's everyday people talking about extraordinary things. And it can also be a place of great joy. I mean, cat videos to this day are one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing still, on YouTube. And then there's all the do-it-yourself stuff that's amazing. Like, I can adjust the pressure on the boiler on my hydronic heating system because of YouTube. That makes me excited. So you can learn stuff like that. But I don't need to call a plumber out because I worked out how to fix it by watching some YouTubers who were kind enough to put their info up there for me. I love that shit. And in the true crime world, I love that everyday people care about victims. And I'm not saying every true crime channel. Don't get me wrong. I know everyone's got their own motives. But the channels that cover cases so sensitively and show a bit of raw emotion are really compelling to listen to. So, yeah, you can't let your emotions get in the way when you're a professional working on a case or you're a first responder or you're a doctor in a children's ward. But we're human beings. You still get attached to certain people you encounter. You still get affected by it emotionally. But when you've got a job to do, you've got a frigging job to do. So sitting up there saying no one should ever get emotionally attached to a case, I personally think if you've got a heart, it's impossible. You'd have to be some cold-hearted granite block of a human being to not be affected emotionally at all. Judges are affected, lawyers are affected, cops are affected, first responders are affected, doctors are affected. But if they're doing their fucking job, they do have to put that to one side to do their job properly. But you're talking about everyday people on YouTube and saying don't get emotionally attached. That's insane. Don't get me wrong, some get obsessed. I don't think that's healthy. But it's the emotional attachment that makes most creators on YouTube in the true crime community start covering a case. Not all. We know there's heaps of creators that jump on the trending case because they see dollar signs. But if you're talking about credible, good-hearted YouTube creators, what makes them start covering a case is they become emotionally connected to that fucking case. So let's not encourage people to be granite blocks of heartlessness. And if you are that, you're not a channel I will ever watch. So I like that people are driven by caring about what's happening in the world. I want people to have an emotional element to what they're doing when they're talking about these cases because they fucking can. And they don't have to put their emotions to one side to cover it. Some do. There are some very slick professional true crimers online, including YouTube. But it's the humanity that hooks me in with these people. And it wasn't humanity that, well, I didn't get hooked in on Zav anyway, because I worked out very early on, her thing is voyeuristic. She's a voyeuristic creator. And like I said, there's people out there that are into that too. You found your home, you know? And you can hang out there and get your needs met. I personally have seen more crime scene photos, dead body photos, autopsy photos than I ever imagined I would, even though I knew I was going to see that sort of shit as a criminal lawyer. I was also an associate to a Supreme Court judge for a year who was a criminal judge, and I've seen everything, man. I don't have a voyeuristic bone in my body for that sort of stuff now. But I know there's a shitload of people who do. I mean, back in the day, pre-YouTube, there were websites like Roshan.com where all the voyeurs would go, and there's mountains of crime scene and autopsy photos on there. Look, I went straight to the Gore Crow thing too, Cement Shoes, but I've thought about it a lot because I was listening to lots of people talking about it driving home from Bay of Fires yesterday, and also I had a bit of a listen while I was sort of unpacking the house, unpacking the car and unpacking everything, making some dinner. And then I even had a bit more of a listen to some stuff and read some comments under some lives just to see what people were thinking. But nobody's really said what I'm about to when I get to the car park. And yeah, but the thing is, they are Gore Crows, and she is a Gore Crow. And she's a known fucking Gore Crow because we've all seen what happened with Kylie Rodney and we've seen what happened with Cleo Smith. And to be honest, prior to Cleo Smith, I mean, I knew of her. She just wasn't my thing. Like, she wasn't my... I didn't gravitate towards her. There were other true crime channels that were putting out content that was more aligned with my standpoint and my ethics and morals. Like she wasn't. I mean, I watched her and sort of went, "Who's this chick?" You know, but she's a voyeur. That's her thing. Hi, Miss K. But I'm not going to get on my high horse about what's disrespectful and what's not. I think what was fucked up was to not make that link password protected in the Dropbox and to basically tell people who wanted access to that link that they had to email for the password and then put a thing in there about you are not to share this information outside of the Dropbox. And if you do, I'll sue your pants off. Like a proper liability clause, not that, but I think that was a huge fucking mistake. Also, one creator was crapping on about, you know, whoever put it out there, they're the real issue. Like, she just had it for her Patreons and it was private. No, she promoted it on her fucking channel. Again, do your research. If you're going to have these bloody mouthy opinions and lives, like at least refer to the facts. She's the one who told everyone she had that shit. It wasn't private. She publicly put it on her channel, and there possibly were people who joined her Patreon because they wanted to see that shit. And that's business. That, I mean, if that's what she wants to do, go for it. But don't be sort of up there supporting her saying, you know, it was all private and it's somebody else who's leaked it. And she put it on her channel. She was like, come one, come all. Look what I've got, gory. Little gore crows, come hither. I have something you're going to absolutely love. And they did come hither. And I'm not going to talk about the, you know, the paywall stuff and everything else. I don't really think she had many options to distribute it privately other than through Patreon or emails. I mean, she had several ways she could have shared that content with the other gore crows in her community. But again, I'm probably going to annoy some people because I've got a slightly different viewpoint on this stuff. And this is new. We haven't parked in here before. Come hither. And yeah, I wouldn't be flocking in there to see that shit because I don't want to. But if people do, you do you, boo. So yeah, I think she fucked up by not putting some sort of password on the Dropbox. But I think even if it was password protected, some people still would have put it out there because that's just the way some people are. I mean, some people are just cunts, let's be honest. But here is where I may lose some of you. And that's okay. Because I'm offering a completely fresh perspective that I haven't found anyone that's come from this angle yet. And all this sort of, you know, the channel's all going live and talking about it, more against what she's done than in support of, but they could all go live till the cows come home as far as I'm concerned, because there's another issue that's the core issue of the whole thing that sticks out like dog's balls to me and probably every Australian and anyone else who lives in another country that's more like Australia in terms of accessing information. I think the real core issue here is, why the fuck is this stuff even available to people in America? I've talked a lot on my channel about televised trials and my views on that, and Americans saying we're taxpayers and we're entitled to keep a check on our courts and what the judges are doing and all of that sort of stuff. That's how they usually justify televised court hearings and trials. Well, we're taxpayers in Australia who pay for our judges and magistrates, and our trials aren't televised, but information about trials is still put out there, and they are very much able to be looked at to make sure that our civil servants are doing the right thing. And we have an appeals process, just like you guys do, if our judicial officers are not doing the right thing. We don't have to watch trials to keep an eye on what's going on. We don't have televised and streamed fucking operations to keep an eye on our doctors who work in public hospitals that are paid by taxpayers either. But if they fuck up, there's medical negligence opportunities. Even lawyers in court that are doing things that aren't great, there's processes for us to be reported as well. So all I'm saying is, I'm not saying your system is wrong and our system is right, but I'm just saying our judicial system is in check as much as yours is without trials being streamed. And in addition to that, we can't, because of our privacy laws, access this sort of stuff. I can't pay $300 or whatever it cost her to get the autopsy photos from a trial. And I'm okay with that, because the trial is where I learn everything about a case. I'm not going to learn anything extra by accessing documents like that and looking at them myself and telling my subs what I think's going on. And I've got a bit of experience in talking about autopsy photos and shit like that. But I would never call myself an expert, and I would never make out that I was showing you guys this stuff for educational purposes. If it was for educational purposes, I'd have a fucking coroner on my panel to go through it with us all. I think the core issue is that this stuff is accessible. And why aren't people outraged about that? Instead of going live on YouTube, maybe start looking at ways to protect child victims or all victims of crimes by bringing in laws, pressuring people to bring in laws that prevent members of the public getting their hands on this stuff, even at a price, even at a cost. It's a very pretty view of a concrete wall. Of course the cops can access stuff. They have to. That's how they prosecute cases. Well, I mean, is 18 days fast or 21 days or whatever it was? They did a remarkable job. But German, I think I don't know what your point, whether you made a comment earlier in chat, but my point is, why is this stuff even accessible to members of the public in America? And why aren't people thinking, this might actually be a bit of a flaw, because now we've got true crime communities online and things get put out there very quickly, and the file that Zav put out there to her Patreons was on all the information, details, photos, everything. It was all on Reddit within, hours of her sharing it. Like, what options are there for family members to protect the autopsy photos of their murdered children? And what I do know from the little bit of research I've been doing in the last 24 hours on this is that it also seems to vary from state to state. And don't get me wrong, Australia's the same. Like, we have very different laws and processes and systems in each state as well. Like, I get that. And I get that, some of your states are death penalty states and some of your states aren't. And, we're looking at, say, for example, the Idaho 4 murders. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is happening because the murders happened in Idaho that may not have happened in another state. But isn't the core issue here really why this stuff is available to people that are not directly connected to the case, whether it be investigators or family members? Because I think that's a real issue here. Because if Zav hadn't have been able to access it, no one would be going live bitching about Zav Girl right now. Why is it okay for someone like Zav Girl to be able to get that stuff, even at a cost? That's, I think, the core issue here. Why hasn't that been addressed? Why aren't people going live talking about the legalities of it and why this is accessible to the public and the justification behind it? And I'm saying all of this from this perspective because in Australia, we can't access this stuff. Like I'm talking about this, I think it's interesting for people to hear the perspective of a lawyer in another country or a person in another country where members of the public don't get to watch streaming trials and they don't get to pay money to access graphic crime scene photos as well as autopsy photos. Oh, I agree. Cement shoes, it is. It's 100% like a. It's like we've told. It's like a slasher movie. It's fucking hideous, absolutely hideous. I mean, the only thing I think that is of any comfort is that it all happened so fucking quickly that hopefully most of them had no fucking clue what was going on. You know, you try to find the silver lining in a story. That's probably it, and isn't that terrible too? But that's what I'm saying, cement shoes. I think that there's this sort of the whole it's the public's right to know. Well, I live in a country where it isn't our right to know or see that stuff, and we're all okay with it. And I just feel that there's sort of misguided anger here. Like, you know, if people, I mean, how I personally feel about Zav Girl accessing that and what she did with it is really not the issue here. The issue is how is she even able to get it? Like, why is she able to get that? Why is anyone able to get that stuff? That's the issue. Oh, I know, Delphi's another one. But I mean, yeah, I think, to be honest, there's, you know, we could go through thousands and thousands of murders that are just absolutely horrific. I'm never, ever going to ever get over the murder of Jill Marr in Australia, Sarah Kafiki, Alison Baden-Clay, Anita Cobby, Victoria Cafaso. There are some murders that are just going to haunt me forever. And then there's unsolved ones like the Beaumont children. 3 kids. 3 kids abducted and, well, they've never appeared anywhere, so presumed murdered and still unsolved. How does somebody kidnap 3 children on foot? It just, but yeah, I mean, we could all reel off cases that are going to, I mean, the Shanann Ruchek and the girls, that just, to me, is one of the most horrific crimes that's occurred in and, you know, you'd put Idaho 4 in there as well. I mean, Gannon's murder, and just knowing from what was said during the trial, like, I don't need to see photos of it. I already know they would be fucking horrific. That was another thing too that I've heard a few people saying, well, you know, they showed the autopsy photos when they were streaming the trial. Wasn't that all like a big scandal on YouTube because the court accidentally, like, it got broadcast to the public as well, and it was really meant to only be for the jury, and then people were sort of saying, oh no, the court did it deliberately. Like, is that not the trial, or am I confusing it with another one? Because I remember autopsy photos being shown in the live stream and people were all up in arms about that happening, and half the people that were talking about it was saying it was accidental and discussing that it happened, and the other half was saying no, it was intentional. But wasn't that in Gannon's trial? But also, how is that a defence to anything? That is where autopsy photos get shown. In fucking trials. Where someone's been accused of murdering. I mean, if it's an autopsy for a matter that's not a crime, obviously it's not going to get shown in court. And it's not just the autopsy photos that she had. She accessed all the photos from when they found the little boy in the suitcase through when they took him out of the suitcase. So all these creators that just keep going, yeah, well, autopsy photos are graphic. That's just the nature of it. No, crime scene photos are finding a child in a dead, like brutally murdered kid in a severely decomposing state. And those photos as well, it's not just autopsy photos. Like autopsy photos are kind of interesting when you have to look at them in your day-to-day work because they are very clinical and after a while, you're looking at the photos and what's happened to somebody, like you're looking at the actual wounds and so on, and you sort of have a disconnect from it. Very different to seeing a photo of a suitcase open with a dead boy inside it and then photos of him immediately after he was taken out of the suitcase. Like, come on, people, do your research. If you're going to get vocal and defend Zav, then find out exactly what was released by her, or if you're going to be anti her too. But again, this live isn't about slamming Zav. She's got her thing. She's a very voyeuristic person, and she's shown that in the cases that I've seen her cover, which were basically Kylie Rodney and Cleo Smith. And prior to that, I just didn't, I just wasn't. She wasn't my vibe. There are plenty other creators. I mean, I found her very slow to watch too, and not that interesting, to be honest. Yeah, and that's the thing. It was the trial. Yeah, I used to have nightmares too. Um, about that case. Yeah, it was the trial where they were accidentally shown. And and imagine, and this is the thing, like, why aren't creators all going live about why this stuff can be released in the first place and protecting the surviving family members that have already had to live through the most brutal murder of a precious child that they adored? Like, why aren't these creators fired up about why Zav was even able to get it? And I understand it. Like in your country, you guys can access it. But why isn't it still bugging some of you that it can be accessed? And why aren't you talking about it? It's not okay. It's fucked up. And this stuff is being put in ordinary citizens' hands to do with it what they want without any regard for the surviving family members. I mean, in this particular instance, Gannon's little sister, who, like any young kid, is going to end up online and Googling. And I mean, she had a murdered brother. Of course, she's going to Google and want to find stuff out about her brother that she never got to know fully. Like, of course she is. And is this shit just going to pop up as well? Is Reddit going to pop up with it all sitting on there? Probably. But again, it wouldn't be out there if Zav hadn't have been able to access it. Why is that not? Why aren't people firing up and saying we need to actually look into this to protect the survivors of these hideous crimes? I haven't heard anyone talking about who even released it to, like, is it the court? Is it the medical examiner? Like, who releases this shit? I would have thought medical examiners release autopsy photos, but I'm not sure that they'd be releasing crime scene photos. And the focus on my channel, as you guys know, is the impact that social media is having on crime, on criminal and civil cases. And some people, Frankie Ruchek Jr., are starting to file lawsuits. And I'm not saying that Gannon's family should sue Zav, because I did hear a former cop, possibly, talking about these FOIA applications and what the requirements are. And I did hear some discussion about whether or not what she did was legal or illegal. And this isn't about slamming her for doing what she did. What I think the real problem is how is this stuff released to anyone in the fucking first place? And why? What is the justification for it? Like the legislation in Australia and our privacy laws, they exist to protect people. That's the whole point of it. That's the reason why we've got these unbelievably strict laws. And I've talked about how even the Idaho 4 matter or case in Australia, anyone that's reporting on it, and it's currently popping up it's constantly popping up in the news, they still don't name the surviving housemates. And if there are photos with them in it, they blur their faces out. That's how, even though any Australian could jump onto an American YouTube channel and learn their full names and see photos of them, but in Australia, that's how strict our privacy laws are. And members of the public can't access this stuff to protect the privacy of the victims and the victims' families. I just don't understand why this isn't sort of being flagged as Houston, we have a problem. Like, historically, these requests back in the day, pre-internet, maybe, because it was mailed out to people and there was a limited audience and there was no way to spread it to hundreds of thousands of people in under 5 minutes. Like, is this something that hasn't moved with the times? Is this something that needs to be addressed? And do new laws need to come in to start protecting people? Because people in Australia could see the link to Zav's file and all of Gannon's information as quickly as it was popped up on Reddit. Like, is this something that needs to actually be looked into and discussed? And because it's like I said, initially back in the day, a FOIA request for something, it would have all had to have been printed and then posted, and the recipient wasn't in a position to scan it all and have it online going out to millions of people in under 5 minutes. But these days people can, and doesn't this need to be addressed? Do these laws maybe need to change? Move with the times? Because again, social media is a beast, and legislators and laws are not keeping up already with what's going on out there. Is this another thing that needs to be looked into? Let me just put on my mascara, and I'm keen to see if any of you, because I haven't seen any comments so far that agree with me, which is fine, but to me that is the core of the problem, because all these channels are just going to keep going alive time after time after time, ripping Zav to shreds. Why aren't they questioning why it's okay for her to have had that in the first place? Because if she was unable to access it, it wouldn't be out there. Now, I'm very much a you do you, boo. Let it be. Let people be. If people are into following cases with a very heavy emphasis on voyeurism, that's up to them. I mean, I got blocked in her channel for saying to her, you might want to take the photo of that innocent man down, because he is suing every media outlet that is showing his photo in connection to Cleo Smith's disappearance. Probably not okay for you to have the guy's face up there. He's an innocent man. He's got a newborn baby. Could you maybe take the photo down? And I got blocked for that. And that was when I was like, okay, cool. Then I'm totally not remotely interested in trying to help you. You do you, boo. And tell your racist mods to go fuck themselves. But she didn't. Some of the comments in that chat was so disgusting. And as a creator, if anyone said anything like that in my chat, they'd be gone in less than 60 seconds. See ya. Don't come back. Ever. Don't be engaging in chat and just cherry picking the comments that support you and ignoring the disgusting racism flying around. That's fucked up. If you're a creator who doesn't read chat at all and that shit's going on, I'd be like, okay, well, your mods need a bit of guidance in what is and isn't acceptable on your channel. But if you're responding to some comments above and below disgusting, filthy, racist shit, sorry, but that is fucked up. And you are responsible for your channel and what people say on there. That's my issue with Zav, was the disgusting racism, but also, yeah, me thinking I was sort of trying to help her out and getting absolutely slammed for it. I was like, fine, that's really backward thinking as far as I'm concerned. I'm all for people helping each other. But if you don't want help, I don't care. All right, let's say I've been mind blown, horrified the past years about how horrific murders sometimes are. It's not just a quarrel and someone getting killed in rage, but pure evil stuff. Yeah, really evil stuff. People are sick, you know. I mean, killing anyone is fucking disgusting, but people just seem to be more into, you know, the more graphic, traumatizing. But I honestly feel with my true crime, what are we going to say, obsession now, interest, long before YouTube, and will be for a long time, because I've been into it, you know, like many of us, for such a long time. But I honestly think a huge part of my interest in it is not only to learn how to keep myself and other people safe, but also I feel that knowing the worst in humanity also inspires you to seek out the best examples of it as well. I do too. And that's the issue to me, Cement, because I feel so sorry for Gannon's parents that stuff is out there now, but I feel even more sorry for them that anyone was even able to access it in the first place. Like, if people want to get angry about what's happened and Zav having access to that stuff, their anger is misdirected if they're angry at her. Be angry at the person that gave her that shit, and be angry at the law that allows that shit to be released to people like Zav Girl or anyone on YouTube, you know? I'm not defending her. The fact that she even applied for it is, like, morally and ethically, to me, major issues. But at the end of the day, I have to look at the core issue here, and the core issue is she was able to access it. And why is that the case? Why was that possible? And why aren't people saying something's got to change? Let's start some petitions. Let's contact our, you know, local courts and medical examiners and get some movement happening about why this might need to change. You know, the internet, everything can be released and spread so freaking quickly. And back in the day, a FOIA request, people might have had their own personal reasons for that. But now it's become, you know, this is for entertainment. I mean, you can call it educational and scientific all you want, unless you had a coroner sitting up there with you explaining all of it, which the coroner in Gannon's trial has already done. Don't be, I mean, that was another thing. I do have one criticism of Zav, is that own your shit. Like, if you want to get this stuff, don't go live going, well, what about all the people who do this, and this? Like, own it. Stand your ground. Where are your convictions? Like, if you believe in what you did is perfectly fine, then own it and just say, this is why it's fine. And if you don't like it, that's your issue. Don't fling mud at it. Don't deflect, is what I'm trying to say. Stand by your actions. As soon as you start going, well, these people do this, no. If you fully believe that what you did was perfectly fine and you're perfectly entitled to do it, and you clearly are because you paid your money and you got the file, stand your ground. Stand by why you got it. Don't deflect and point out other people's flaws. Own that shit, man. You'd have a lot more respect from me if you did that. You'd have a lot more respect from a lot of people. If you can justify why you did it by explaining it as it is and standing your ground, you will get so much more respect. The second you start pointing out all the other fucked up shit going on YouTube, your respect is lost. Because there are plenty of channels that point out all kinds of shitty stuff happening all over YouTube. Doesn't bother me who's doing it. If it's shitty, I'll talk about it. But if you can stand your ground, stick to your values, even if they're not aligned with other people's, and defend yourself because you're entitled to, you're getting ripped to shreds, I'll respect you. I may not agree with you, but at least you're not diluting the situation by flinging mud at other people. Like, be a woman, grow some balls, stand your ground. This is why I did it, and if you don't like it, that's your fucking problem. I'm able to access it. And again, I think the core issue here is none of this would have happened if she wasn't able to get that fucking file, right? Isn't that the core issue? I didn't know this certain channel was going to show Gannon's pictures. They didn't want to view it. Yeah, well, that's fucked up too. Oh, the Valo. I mean, yeah, that's another traumatizing story for sure. Yeah, and I'm a bit with you there too, Jamin, because that's the thing, like I mentioned earlier, like if you get the whole file and there's the photos of, going back to Gannon's example, and there's photos of him in the suitcase and then being pulled out of the suitcase, like she still had a discretion whether or not to include that in the stuff. Like if you want to show the autopsy photos and have a discussion about it for educational purposes, like, I mean, I don't show overly graphic stuff on my channel, but there's always things that I think. Remember when I showed the Grey Hughes footage of Kylie Rodney going into the water, and I was conflicted about even showing it. But I wanted to because it proved that she drove into the water. And I was so conflicted, and I'm like, I'm going to play it once. And I gave everybody a warning because to me, that just knowing they were the last seconds of her life was horrifying. But that's probably the worst thing I've shown on my channel. And I was conflicted about showing that. And it was nothing like graphic crime scene photos. I mean, where Gannon's body was found in that suitcase is a crime scene. It's not just where he was murdered. It's so horrible. Yeah. At that, and see, hi, Miss Kay, and that's the thing. It's just so bizarre to us because this stuff is just not accessible. And I still think that's the core issue, though. I still think all these channels that are just going live attacking Zav, like, you don't have to agree with what she did. It's okay. You don't have to agree with it. But the fact is, why aren't you fired up about the fact she was able to access it? Why aren't you fired up about the people that give that shit out, even for a fee? Like, why is that not, if you're going to get upset about Gannon's sister seeing the photos, and I am upset at that thought, but I'd be questioning why the fuck it even can be put out there. Like, it's given to people. Because you can't do that where I live, ever. And I'm not saying Australia's better. I'm just giving a perspective from a person who lives in a country where we cope without being able to access this sort of shit just fine. I've never had a conversation with anyone at any dinner party, in any social setting saying, my life would be so complete if I could access all the autopsy videos of the Port Arthur victims. Like, nobody here cares that they can't see that shit. We're quite okay not seeing it. That's a great idea, Scout. That's such a good idea. All right, someone find me an American attorney who'll talk to me about it. Because the American attorneys on YouTube don't care that I'm an attorney in Australia. I've tried to reach out to a few. God, it's already 22 past. I'm ready to go now anyway. But yeah, my channel's tiny, and I'm not. I mean, I don't have any bloody standing on YouTube, so finding someone that will do it. But I'd be really keen to see why the laws haven't moved with the times. Like, I think every single fucking law has to be looked at the moment. It doesn't matter what it's about, to look at the social media ramifications as well, whether it's a civil thing, whether it's a criminal thing, whether it's a commercial thing. If you're not including social media in any discussions about legislative change or possible legislative change, there's something wrong with you. You've got to factor this shit in. The times, they are a-changing, and they have been for a while. Hey, wake the truck up. Yeah, well, I mean, I can write to them, I guess. But generally, when I've tried to reach out to some and asked if I can get some sort of involvement with them, I mean, what have we got? 600 subs? Like, they don't give a fuck about us. Why are they going to waste their time talking to me about it? I mean, I'd love to, but I don't think they see any value in talking to me. I mean, I can try. I agree, Cement. They are. And I agree with that too. But at the end of the day, it still goes back to my point about what the core issue here is. And it's, if Zav Girl couldn't have got it, she wouldn't have shared it. And I mean, this is a quick live. Like, I'm happy to do another chat, like a proper chat from home about it, because there's a whole moral and ethical argument too. But if you can access this stuff and you're not bound by strict rules in how you distribute it or what you do with it, like, is she really the issue here? The issue to me is how she was even able to get it and why it's still okay to. And what's the justification for it? Now, morally and ethically, yeah, I could do a live on that too. Like, why the fuck would you even think that it would be good to get it and trust that nobody's going to share it on Reddit? But that's not the point. The point is, why was she able to access this shit, even for a fee? And that's another thing, because Wag the Tracker, for her, like, she's a voyeuristic creator. I'm not surprised she did it at all. I'm not shocked by it. That's what she does. She's a voyeur. Kylie Rodney, Cleo Smith, just two cases. I can't even remember her take on the Chris Watts shit, but I know she went on and on and on about it forever, like she does with every other matter. And I agree entirely. We're on the same page. Wake the track up. Yep. If they can't access, they can't put it out. I just want to get down to the bottom of the chat. Hi, Emily. God, the chat's miles away. Joe Murray. He's on one of the panels with other cops. Yeah, and we survive. Without seeing it. Yeah, a lot of people are really angry about it. And there is a moral and an ethical conversation we can have about it as well. Like, why would you even do that? But the reality is, at the moment, I think the core issue is that the anger is misdirected. Why aren't all these creators in America that are so upset about it firing up about why it's even accessible? That's where I'm coming from, because it just doesn't happen here. So it's kind of mind-boggling to me that this can even be accessed. And so many people are angry and fired up about it, which is fucking awesome. But can we direct the anger to why this even still can happen in a social media world? Oh, look, she does and says a lot of weird shit. Like I said, I mean, I was trying to help her and I got blocked. So, I was trying to save her from being sued. I'm kind of bummed Terence Kelly didn't add her in the mix, but he didn't. Oh, yeah, Port Arthur's horrible. One may have an issue with good judgment if you get your hand on such things and then repost it. They are. Well, I agree. I mean, there's a whole, and look, guys, I've got to go to work. I start work in 2 minutes. This was really just a live for me to go, yeah, this is a hot topic. There are many different arguments to it, and the moral and ethical one, I understand that. But what I'm seeing and hearing is either people defending her haven't even bothered really looking into it, so they sound like fuckweeds, and saying if you don't like it, don't watch it is just defeatist and bullshit. But then you've also got people that are very angry about it, and I want those angry people to question why this is still a thing when social media, it's guaranteed it's going to get out there. Like whoever leaked it or put it out on Reddit, they've exploited it too. There's this chain of events because someone was quite happy for a fee to hand all this shit over in the first place. And I think that's the core issue. But we will discuss it again. I've got to go. Thank you so much all for dropping in. And I love you, Groovers. Have a beautiful Sunday night or Monday morning, wherever you are in the world. And we will definitely have a live to go into this in a bit more detail. And I think everyone is very entitled to be pissed off about it. There's so many different angles to this. But I'm aiming for the core issue. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that more people aren't. Maybe they will. Maybe that initial anger, disappointment, upset, everything else, maybe after a while they'll start going, our system is a little bit fucked, let's address that. Oh, I know, my freedoms, but I wasn't going to go down that road right now. I got to go to work. I've got clients needing legal advice. I love you guys. I'll see you all very soon. Bye.